Psychoactive drugs. Psychoactive drugs are substances which augment or mimic the naturally produced neurotransmitters. So, taking opium or heroin will stimulate the opiate receptors in the mind and give one a feeling of euphoria. Drinking alcohol will affect 5 of the 8 major neurotransmitters, and smoking tobacco will affect the other 3. Most psychoactive drugs have been around for over 100 years. Some psychoactive drugs, such as alcohol, opium, nicotine, tobacco, and cannabis, have been known for hundreds or thousands of years. Amphetamines were developed prior to the First World War, and some synthetic drugs, such as crack cocaine, are recent. Some older drugs have been made more concentrated or potent, such as the distillation of alcohol, the refinement of opium into heroin, and the development of very strong strains of cannabis. Some of these psychoactive drugs are legal and others are illegal. Legitimate businesses will happily sell you legal drugs if you are of age or you require the drug for medicinal purposes. But just because a drug such as alcohol or tobacco is legal does not mean it is safe. Drug dealers will offer to sell you illegal drugs. Illegal drugs are often of varying strength and contaminated. As a criminal law barrister once pointed out, the motorcycle gangs are not pharmaceutical chemists. Consuming some potion brewed in a Harley-Davidson petrol tank is scary when the quantities between a regular dose and something that will fry your brain can be minuscule. LSD, for example. Some drugs, such as alcohol, pass through the system quickly, whilst others, such as cannabis, stay in the system for many years. Some drugs, such as caffeine, seem to cause no lasting effect in small quantities, other than perhaps to babies in the womb, whilst others, such as crack cocaine, are harmful in any quantity. Alcohol very powerful. Those who market legal drugs promote their product as very different from medically regulated or illegal drugs. Yet alcohol, according to von Steiff, a prominent addictions expert and author of the book Brain in Balance, is arguably the most powerful psychoactive drug in that it affects 5 of the 8 major neurotransmitters. Alcohol can be advertised, and the advertisers use a wide range of techniques I have outlined above. Provided you are of age, you can go into a bottle shop and buy a carton containing 9 litres of vodka, 270 doses, standard drinks. The attendant will smile as he or she loads it onto your trolley and ask if you want more. Contrast this with codeine, a popular opiate painkiller, very safe taken in the right dosage. In Australia, this can now only be purchased with a doctor's prescription. If alcohol were invented today, it would most definitely be a tightly controlled prescription drug. It is banned in most Muslim countries. This handbook is not about whether or not you should drink alcohol, but just be aware it is a very powerful psychoactive drug. Also be aware that for reasons I discuss below, GABA-glutamate balance, more than a little alcohol makes you feel jittery as the effect wears off. Tobacco. The use of tobacco these days is becoming increasingly out of favour with the young in Australia due to awareness of the enormous negative health consequences associated with smoking. Other reasons are that it is seen as associated with losers, and for non-smokers the odour is unpleasant. Prohibition on advertising severely limits the ability of the advertising technicians to enchant would-be cigarette users. If a person is persuaded to take up smoking, it can be very difficult to stop, not only because of the nicotine, but also because of the sugar in the cigarette. Medication coupled with hypnotherapy provides the best chance of stopping, though it is always up to the individual. Why people take psychoactive drugs? Why do people take psychoactive drugs? The answer is to feel better, to move their mind to a better place. There are two preconditions for addiction. One is a deep-seated psychological distress. The other is a state of over or under sensitivity. This, put simply, is the general theory of addictions taught by the US psychologist Durand Jacobs. Uppers and downers. Humans have to tread a line between understimulation and overstimulation. That is to say, we need enough activity to stop us getting bored, but not so much that we become overwhelmed. To use a television analogy, imagine that each person perceives the world through his or her senses, which are like a television set. Normally, a person's television set is adjusted to a comfortable brightness and sound. However, some people's television sets have screens that are too bright, with garish colours and blaring sound. They find watching TV overwhelming and painful. Others have dim pictures with muddy colours and faint sound, and they find watching TV boring. Oversensitive people take downers. A person who is overly sensitive finds the world overwhelming. His television set is too loud and the colours too bright. If these people have deep-seated psychological pain, they seek shelter from the real world by resorting to drugs that dull the senses, which turn the sound and colours down. These drugs are called downers, and examples are benzodiazepines, cannabis, opium, and heroin. The downers dull the pain of their severe psychological trauma, usually childhood trauma. It should be noted that one effect of prolonged opiate use is that extended opiate use causes modification of the opiate receptors that will last a lifetime. In other words, once tolerance is established, opiates cannot be used to reduce pain, even when the person is old. Addiction. As mentioned, if you are given mind-altering drugs, including tobacco, sugar and alcohol, these affect thought processes by altering the balance of neurotransmitters in the brain. In an extreme case, mind-altering substances can alter the balance of neurotransmitters to the point where it is simply impossible to make a rational decision, to exercise free will, if you like, to stop the activity. Where this happens on a recurring basis, it is known as addiction. Undersensitive people take uppers. A person who is emotionally blunted, who is insensitive, who finds the world boring, who is constantly seeking excitement, is undersensitive. This person's television set is too quiet and the colours dull and muddy. If these people have deep-seated psychological pain, they want drugs that will turn the sound and colour up, which will excite them, which will get them up into the sensory range where they feel okay. And so, if they have psychological pain, they take uppers such as cocaine and amphetamines. Hyperactive children are given amphetamines because that brings them up to their desired arousal level and makes them feel okay. What makes a person oversensitive? What makes a person oversensitive or undersensitive? I believe the main reason is environmental. A child who is sheltered too much, who is given too little stimulation, particularly a traumatised child, may grow into an oversensitive person. What makes a person undersensitive? A child who is overstimulated may grow into an undersensitive person. The advance in screen technology is overstimulating the current generation. Advances in movies and television, cartoons, computer-enhanced design, modern-day camera techniques and screen technology all combine to fascinate and engulf the young in a vivid, fast-moving world. It is just flash, 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 filling your visual cortex up with bright action images and ignoring your logic centres. When you come back to the real world, it is dull and boring, and you're looking forward to the next visual sensory fix. Most used drugs moving from downers to uppers. The growth in overstimulation of children is leading to a change in the use of drugs. Before the advent of immersive technology, coloured television, computers and cellular phones, the most used drugs were downers, heroin and cannabis. Now the most used drugs are uppers, cocaine and amphetamines, including ice. Alcohol works both ways. The choice of downers and uppers by oversensitive and undersensitive people respectively is blurred by the most used drug, alcohol. The reason is that alcohol works as both an upper and a downer. It raises glutamate, an excitatory neurotransmitter, and also GABA, a calming neurotransmitter. As the alcohol wears off, the GABA levels drop to normal more quickly than the glutamate, and this is why alcoholics get the shakes if they start to get sober. You should aim for a medium but flexible psychological arousal level. Ideally, you should have a medium but flexible psychological arousal level. That is to say, you should normally be comfortable with a reasonable amount of pressure, but you should also be able to cope with stress without looking for it, and relax during quiet periods without becoming bored. How to train yourself to have a balanced psychological arousal level. If you are oversensitive or undersensitive, you can, up to a point, retrain yourself to become more flexible in your arousal level. Activities for the oversensitive. You can, if you are oversensitive, conduct tasks to increase your ability to cope with stress. You can educate yourself to relate to other people better. You can learn public speaking and communication skills. You can educate yourself so you can work more efficiently and handle criticism. Play some appropriate competition sport. Find someone you can share your concerns with. That person might be a friend, a relative, or some professional such as a counsellor. If you have any deep-seated anxiety or psychological wounding, see a hypnotherapist. Activities for the undersensitive. If you are undersensitive, you can learn to focus with activities that take you into the body, such as meditation, yoga, prayer, melodic music, poetry, singing, and also things where you use your body and hands in a rhythmic way, such as ballroom dancing, carpentry and gardening. And you need to observe other people closely and tap into their feelings. And if you have any deep-seated anxiety or psychological wounding, see a hypnotherapist. Hallucinogens. Hallucinogens cause a breakdown in the barrier between the conscious and unconscious minds. This allows unmediated content from the unconscious to surge up and overwhelm the conscious state. Hallucinogens can be highly potent in small amounts, and poor manufacturing processes or overdosing can cause permanent brain damage. If you want to experiment with transcendental experiences, you are far better off avoiding chemicals and using meditation. Though, as I mentioned above, meditation should only be undertaken with the right safeguards. Thank you for listening.